Question number 47 on the Math 086 final review. 4a divided by b minus 4c squared. And what we're going to do is substitute our values for our variables, okay? So 4 times 1/9, because that's what a is, divided by b, which is 2/3, minus 4, and then c is -1/2. Put that in parentheses. And we're going to square that, okay? And our next step is you always want to remember order of operations. The first thing we want to work with is parentheses. Since we only have one number in our parentheses, that doesn't count. That's only if you had addition or subtraction along with this value here in the parentheses. So then our next, first is parentheses. Our next would be to think of exponents, and we do have exponents. We have -1/2 squared. So what we're essentially doing is we're taking -1/2, and we're just multiplying it by ourselves. That's what square means, just multiplying it by itself. So you're just multiplying it by another -1/2, okay? And we're just going to multiply straight across. Now always remember, when you multiply a negative times a negative, you always get a positive. And then we just do 1 times 1, which will give us 1 in the numerator. And in our denominator, -2 times -2 is going to give us a positive 4. So the first part we have 1/4 instead of having -1/2 squared. That equals 1/4. So we're going to rewrite this equation just again. I'm going to write 4 times 1/9 divided by 2/3 minus 4 times a positive 1/4. Okay, so our next step would be we did exponents. Now we can do multiplication, and we can do multiplication here. We're going to start with the left side first. So we're going to multiply 4 times 1/9, and essentially 4 times 1/9. All we have to do is, if you want to make the whole number a fraction, we simply just put a 1 underneath it, and that makes it a fraction, okay? That makes it an improper fraction. So we're going to take 4 over 1 and multiply it by 1/9. And we're simply going to do 4 times 1, which is 4, and 1 times 9, which is 9. So now we have 4/9, and we're going to do 4/9. I'm going to rewrite, divided by 2/3 minus, and what I see here is that we have another multiplication. We can multiply 4 times 1/4, okay? So we're going to do -4 times 1/4. We're simply going to do, once again, we're just going to put 4 over 1, and when we do that, we make an improper fraction, so it's easy to just multiply across. And we always want to remember, when you're multiplying, you can reduce in the numerator and denominator if they have a factor in common. And the 4 and 4 both have 4 in common, so we're going to divide by 4. 4 divided by 4 is going to give us 1 in the numerator, and then 4 divided by 4 is going to give us 1 in the denominator, okay? And now we can multiply across. So you always want to remember too, when you're multiplying a negative times a positive, you're going to get a negative, okay? So 1 times 1 is going to give us 1, and in the denominator, 1 times 1 is going to give us 1. And 1 over 1 is simply 1 is a whole number, okay? So I'm going to do 4/9 divided by 2/3 minus 1, okay? Now our next step is, after you do multiplication, we want to do division, okay? And we're going to do 4/9 divided by 2/3. You always want to remember, when you are dividing fractions, you're really just multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to take 4/9 and multiply it by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. Okay? Before we multiply across, we want to reduce if we possibly can in our numerator and denominators. And I see that first we can reduce in our numerator 4 and denominator 2. They have a factor of 2 in common. So we're going to divide both by 2. 4 divided by 2 in the numerator is going to give you 2. And in the denominator, 2 divided by 2 is going to give us 1. 9 and 3 have a factor in common as well. They both have 3 as a factor in common. So we're going to divide both by 3. 3 divided by 3 is going to give us 1. 9 divided by 3 is going to give us 3. Okay? So now we can multiply straight across. We're going to multiply 2 times 1, which gives us 2. And then 3 times 1, which will give us 3. So now we have 2/3, and we still need to subtract 1 from it. So 2/3 minus 1, okay? That's the final part of the equation we need to solve. So I'm just going to rewrite this. 2/3 minus 1. So now what we need to do here is we first, I'm just going to keep 2/3 minus 1. I'm just going to make 1 into a fraction, and I'm simply just going to put 1, the number 1 right underneath it. So now it's a fraction. So it's 2/3 minus 1 over 1. I need to find the LCD, least common denominator, and I need to find the LCD of both 3 and 1, and it has to be an equal value. I'm going to do multiples of 1 just because 1 is the least amount, it's the lowest number. You should always start with the lowest number. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. We can stop there because we need to make sure our denominators match. And we already have a 3 in the denominator here. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn 1 over 1 into a fraction with 3 as a denominator. In order to do that, we're going to take 1 over 1. We're going to put an equal sign. And then in the denominator, we're going to put 3. What you can do is you can do 1 times 3. You can cross multiply and do 1 times 3, which will give you 3. And then 3 divided by 1 will give you 3. That's one way to solve this. But an easier way is to do what times 1 will give you 3. So if you multiply 1 times 3 in the denominator, you also do that in the numerator as well. Whatever you do to the denominator, you do the numerator as well to make it equal if you want an equivalent fraction, which is what we're looking for. So 1 times 3 is 3. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this as 2/3 minus 3 over 3. Okay? So 2/3 minus 3 over 3. So what we're going to do is we're first going to subtract in the numerator. 2 minus 3 is -1. When you're adding or subtracting, your denominator always stays the same. So 3 just comes straight over. Our final answer for 47 is -1/3.